Good morning and welcome to Rising. We have, of course, another great show for you today. It is Tuesday morning. I think I finally got my voice back, so that's.
Oh yeah, I was wondering about the scratchy voice. I thought maybe you were getting sick. I was going to say
Friday and Monday. No, I was just been talking too much. I wear out my voice. I'll be at loud restaurants with people, and I just can't stop myself from talking. I'm like, you know what, tonight I won't talk as much. And then half an hour in, I'm ranting and raving about a variety of things.
And then it just gets louder and louder. You know, as the restaurant progresses.
Also, I don't have great hearing, so I speak louder because I can't hear myself.
Oh, wow. Okay, you got to get that checked out, Robby. Don't play games.
Nah, I'm an old man. It's fine.
Coming up on Rising, former Jeffrey Epstein confidant Ghislaine Maxwell chose to plead the fifth during her congressional testimony to avoid answering potentially incriminating questions.
Plus, NBC's Savannah Guthrie released a new video on Instagram saying that her family is at a, quote, hour of desperation as the latest ransom deadline has expired.
And Senator Bernie Sanders defended a Winter Olympian after President Trump bashed the athlete's comments about the U.S. But first, as always, Robby, what's on your radar?
Sure you'll love this one, Lindsay. Princess Jasmine is ready for her close-up. Jasmine Crockett, of course, released a new ad over the weekend in which she slammed President Trump and promised to fight back because she's such a warrior. Take a look.
The system is broken. Our communities are being terrorized. People are hurting. But Texas has a warrior who's fighting back. A champion for us, our votes, our rights. It drives the president crazy. So they tried to draw her out of Congress because they thought it would take away our power. They were wrong.
I'm Jasmine Crockett, and I approve this message.
Gotta admit, I love the comic book graphics and the force lightning. But did you see that final shot where Crockett's standing side by side with an army of people, presumably Texas voters? Well, no, that was apparently AI generated. I guess she couldn't find enough real supporters. She also couldn't be bothered to write down her actual policy ideas and put them on her website. A CNN reporter caught that in the issues section of her campaign site next to her proposed plan containing the placeholder text, which read, "Write out your bullet points here. Anything from a sentence to a paragraph works." That website has since been corrected. Now, I guess some of those great ideas still forthcoming. Now, look, it's perfectly possible that Jasmine Crockett defeats James Tallarico, the obviously more electable and more impressive moderate Democratic candidate by far. If she does, she'll face an even more uphill battle to get elected as a U.S. Senator in the reliably red state of Texas. That's because even among progressives, she has expressed deeply off-putting and identity-coded and, frankly, even offensive statements, like her complaining about mediocre white boys and saying that Latinos who voted for Trump have a slave mentality. Ugly stuff. Revealing. And of course, she's happy to be boldly, stridently wrong to the point of outright deception. Remember when she accused Republican Lee Zeldin and others of taking money from Jeffrey Epstein? And then we found out that it was actually a different Jeffrey Epstein. Our Jeffrey Epstein was already dead. She was defiant about that and refused to apologize, even doubling down and saying it was perfectly fair. She actually addressed this again recently during an interview with the progressive media site Vox, where the interviewer politely suggested that maybe this was something, just maybe, she should walk back. Nope. Here was Crockett's response.
But when I see the moment on the House where you seem to accuse Republican Lee Zeldin of taking money from Jeffrey Epstein, but it seemed like if it was not the same person, I wonder, is there times in which the rhetoric goes too far? Are there times in which you should say, maybe I messed that one up?
No, not in this environment. I don't. I think that we are really in uncharted territory.
So I hear your argument that you're reflecting the urgency necessary, and so that's why it won't give an inch.
Correct.
Did you catch that? The journalist really lets her off the hook there. He says she's reflecting the urgency of the moment, which is why she feels empowered to lie and to deceive. We'll see how that works come primary time. Now, Lindsay, dear Lindsay,
yes,
you said yesterday when we discussed, I believe in your lens, we discussed that really awful Obama's video.
Yes.
And you said that Trump who said it was wrong and took it down, it was a mistake, but didn't explicitly say the words, "I'm sorry." You were pretty harsh on him about that.
Yeah, and when Jasmine Crockett
didn't even admit
Lee Zeldin of the wrong Epstein, yes, I disagree with that. She went on The View and said, "I never said Jeffrey Epstein,
right,
the exact pedophile."
She didn't admit it was, not only will she not apologize, she won't even admit it was a mistake.
Yes, she just said, "I just was suggesting we need to look into that."
Should you maybe have not done that? Her response, No.
The difference between me and anyone else is always going to be who can't just call out a spade is that I can. And so she should have apologized for that. But I think what you're critiquing is like not policy. It's like what's happening on the website, like process critiques. So you're trying to dig into anything you can, like historical footage of her saying the wrong Epstein, to try to tie it to present day. That was months ago.
I'm not gonna let this one go.
You don't have to let it go. You can keep it going.
Funny.
It's funny to you, but you can keep going. But I'm saying the policy is not the thing that I hear you critiquing. And so her website has a mistake and an error, but President Trump released a great health care plan that had absolutely nothing. So at least on her website, she listed, he said
concepts
nothing.
Of a plan.
No, he doesn't. You know that was trash. I sat here with Amber, who's even more vehemently a defender of President Trump, and said there's nothing there. So I don't think you think there's something there. She talked about specific things.
There, huh?
Yeah, Amber said, so you can't even, don't go further than that. I mean, come on. So she talked about student debt relief. She talked about asking all insurers to fully cover people for their benefits and do full coverage. She also talks about boosting substance abuse treatment. But you picked out that she left in text on a graphic, but you also will excuse.
Insert idea here.
And if you think that Jasmine Crockett is writing her website, right, but you also excuse that the president's not tweeting out his tweets, then come on now, you're not being fair also. So you can say that a clerical issue like this is not actually reflective of policies when the president and his administration is not releasing one lick of information about what their health care plans are. So that is not a fair criticism. Also, I think that people are scared of Jasmine Crockett. She has this bravado about her. She's a national name. She might break through with the apathetic voters of Texas. As you know, in most elections, Texas voters show up about 50% or less. And so she has an opportunity to break through and be that candidate that gets people out to vote and motivates them. And even you who are interested in her graphics on the screen, that might be the one factor that gets somebody to consider looking into her record. And it's not like the woman hasn't been in Congress for years. She has a long-standing record that shows all the things that she's accomplished and voted on. So if you're confused about where she stands, look at her last few votes and you can see exactly where she stands. Don't look at text on screen. That's a mistake, copy and paste probably from ChatGPT. I don't care about that. That's not policy.
Yes,
Jasmine Crockett is running on policy.
I don't love the idea of politicians using AI to supplement their base of support. Like this is like the Battle of Helm's Deep or
Your
something.
best friend, Kevin O'Leary, loves the idea of AI, right?
I like the
him and he
idea
went
of AI.
viral about using AI as extra. So why can't she use AI? Okay, so she had 20 people behind her in real life and then 1,000 in AI. Like, okay, you want her to pay 1,000 people to come out and use campaign funds on 1,000 extras?
You just be honest.
Why? You want her to get...
Why?
No, 1,000 people probably like Jasmine Crockett. I say that to be true just by the 1,000 likes she gets on any given day on tweets. So
That's
therefore...
me liking them. I'm liking them so I can flag them. Sorry, if I ever like your tweet, it doesn't necessarily mean I agree with your tweet. It means I'm putting it in my save for later file.
There's a save button also that you
I just use the like function for that.
You know what I'll tell you? It seems a little bit like you're scrambling. It seems like you just want to find something.
Me?
Yeah, you're scrambling.
I'm scrambling.
Yeah, because people are like, oh,
Am I
love
scrambling?
Yeah, I feel like people are like, I'd love if Jasmine Crockett, and they're saying that because they wouldn't really love. It's like people say, I love if Mom Donnie won, and then he won.
No,
I
want her to be the candidate because I think she's more likely to lose.
But everyone said that about Mom Donnie. You know, let's talk
I didn't
about
say that about Mom Donnie.
Well, let's talk about unelectable candidates. Trump was at one time the unelectable candidate. John Fetterman in Pennsylvania was at one time the unelectable candidate because they're likely to lose. You know that? And guess what? Both of them have been elected. And so this rhetoric around people that you might be scared of whether they come
I
into
was
position.
surprised Fetterman won despite his medical problems at the time.
And I was surprised President Trump
surprising.
won despite a slew of things that we can go over.
Okay, but we're not talking about the
saying.
nation at large. We're talking about just Texas.
So you might be surprised if Jasmine Crockett wins. And I think that is scary to a lot of people who don't like her.
You know what?
And she fights fire with fire. And people don't like that she's as sassy as our president. If you accept that behavior from him, you got to accept it from her.
You know what I'm surprised about?
What are you surprised
This is the second day in a row this week where we have actually matched, and you did not comment on it. Because you always say we're matching, and we never are.
We actually
today
do.
we actually are, and yesterday, if you go back and look, we were matching as well. And you didn't say anything.
You know what? I love when people change the topic because they know Jasmine Crockett might win.
I want to get that in there before we proceeded to more serious discussion topics. Next up, speaking of which, convicted child sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell pleads the fifth while Congress takes a peek at the unredacted Epstein files. Give you the latest on that. Stay with us.
Jeffrey Epstein's former girlfriend and longtime accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, was called to testify before the House Oversight Committee on Monday. just less than 4 years into a 20-year sentence for her role in the disgraced financier's alleged sex crimes.
But the committee didn't get much out of Maxwell at all. She refused to answer any questions from the panel, invoking her Fifth Amendment right to avoid self-incrimination. That move was not surprising at all. Maxwell indicated she would plead the Fifth prior to the hearing. In a letter to the committee explaining her decision, Maxwell's lawyers wrote she must remain silent because Ms. Maxwell has a habeas petition currently pending that demonstrates her conviction rests on a fundamentally unfair trial. He continued, if this committee and the American public truly want to hear the unfiltered truth about what happened, there's a straightforward path. Ms. Maxwell is prepared to speak fully and honestly if granted clemency by President Trump. Only she can provide the complete account. Some may not like what they hear, but the truth matters. For example, both President Trump and President Clinton are innocent of any wrongdoing. Ms. Maxwell alone can explain why, and the public is entitled to that explanation.
Now, Democrats on the panel condemned her plea for clemency. Virginia Representative Suhas Subramanyam placing the blame on President Trump, saying she is campaigning over and over again to get that pardon from President Trump, and this president has not ruled it out. And so that is why she's continuing not to cooperate with our investigation. And Congressman Khanna pointing out the inconsistency in Maxwell's willingness to testify.
She's taken a blanket Fifth Amendment on any question. And my view is that many of my questions don't in any way incriminate her. The American people will see that there's an inconsistency. Why did she not plead the Fifth when Blanche asked her questions? And now she's pleading the Fifth about things that don't implicate her, but may implicate many of the other powerful people in the Epstein class that committed these crimes.
Meantime, the DOJ opened up the unredacted files related to Epstein to members of Congress yesterday, and some members are already sounding the alarm. Congressman Jamie Raskin telling reporters after his review that the DOJ improperly redacted the public versions of the files. Take a listen.
There are hundreds and hundreds of pages in the Epstein files that were recently released where identifying information about victims is right there. Conversely, we didn't want to see any redactions of the names of co-conspirators, yet nonetheless the Epstein file documents that were released are filled with redactions.
The two congressmen who wrote the Epstein Files Transparency Act, Thomas Massie and Khanna, they had some revelations of their own. Let's listen.
What I saw that bothered me were the names of at least 6 men that have been redacted that are likely incriminated by their inclusion in these files.
There are 6 men, some of them with their photographs, that have been redacted, and there's no explanation why those people were redacted.
They also said some of the files were still redacted because that's how the DOJ received them. As for the names of those 6 people, Massie and Khanna said they don't intend to release them themselves.
I would like to give the DOJ a chance to say they made a mistake and over-redacted and let them unredact those men's names. That would probably be the best way to do it.
All right, lots to get into here. I guess let's start with Maxwell and then circle back to that part of it. It's not surprising she's pleading the Fifth. She's going to plead the Fifth on everything. She wants a clemency deal or some kind of arrangement. And frankly, I don't think that would be a great idea because she could lie, she could exaggerate, she'll say anything to get out of the situation she's in, so why would we automatically trust that? She is the one next to Epstein who is most obviously guilty from the information we have, so I'm not sure why we would let out a guilty person in order to maybe entrap maybe someone who possibly did something wrong, but we have to take her word for it. That doesn't sound good to me. Now, I agree with her that there's not a shred of evidence to incriminate the Clintons or Donald Trump, so she's not lying about that. I agree, there's no evidence, but I don't really see the point, frankly, in questioning her further, unless in these files we do see more than just a hint that a bigger fish did something sexually wrong with young people, not just associating with Epstein when it was not smart to do so, but like actually sexually assaulted kids. And it's really bad, and it's worth trading Maxwell's freedom to get that person. That seems Not likely to me, but I'll leave the door open to that possibility, but I certainly don't see it yet. Right?
I think the back and forth with Oversight Committee Chair James Comer saying a month ago that he wasn't interested in talking to Maxwell and then bringing her forth yesterday, knowing that she was going to plead the fifth, knowing that she's a known perjurer, to me was just very performative and silly, knowing that she wasn't going to give any information anyway. Yeah. I think that because she spoke to Todd Blanche last July and had a full conversation with him that was closed to the public, so we don't really ever know what happened. And then we saw her get moved to a minimum security prison in Texas, which made a lot of people uncomfortable because why are we accompanying somebody who has been convicted of these egregious charges? Is concerning. And now that she's publicly and very boldly calling for clemency when she needs to just sit in jail for what she's been accused and convicted of, is problematic to me that conversation is even still ongoing. And the president has not fully dismissed it. What Khanna was talking about is the fact that he wants to ask her real questions. He talked about, and he maybe this number moved to 6, but in a message that he put on X, he was saying there's 4 people that he specifically wanted to ask her about. And how are these 4 people going to implicate her? No one said it has to be the president. No one said it has to be Bill Clinton. Like I said, if they're involved, if they're not, that doesn't bother me. But if there's 4 people that they're looking at as co-conspirators and they don't want to release the names, they're trying to let a process be respectful through the branches of government as it should be and let the DOJ release the information. They don't need to go nuclear. We talked about this yesterday.
I'm all done with that.
But they don't have to
tell
go.
us the names.
I know, but they're trying to do their jobs and not act like childish. They're saying the DOJ could have made a mistake here. We're giving you space to do it, and they've already suggested on air that they're willing to just release the names if the DOJ doesn't want to.
Do it now.
They have the opportunity, but obviously now that the files are...
How about now?
Well,
this afternoon.
They requested for the files to not be redacted. They got what they requested. So
I requested them to put up or shut up. I want to know the names now.
They can, but I think that now that they have gotten the files how they want them to, if the DOJ is not willing to speak up, then they should. Yeah, because they've been teasing that they're going to speak up. They've spent a lot of their political career for the last year fighting for these Epstein files to be transparent and fully released. And so people would like to see, because if the victims are scared to speak for some reason, they would like to see them speak. You now have the information, say it out loud. And so that's what I think they should do.
Let's hear it. I'm all ears. I'm waiting. But what I suspect is going to happen is it won't be as compelling as we're led to believe. I mean, Jamie Raskin, for instance, he said something about how he saw a new document that there was evidence that a 9-year-old had been abused, which is a very scandalous accusation. That'd be the youngest victim we know of. Again, it's a 15 to 17 range. We've already seen that email. That email was made public. It was a formatting error. It references a 19-year-old, not a 9-year-old. So the fact that he made that mistake, even though it's already been corrected on social media, shows me he's not paying enough attention to this. And we need people to keep their eye on the ball here because that one already got dealt with. So that's all you got. That's not anything. So
the ball is really in Congress court at this point. So
I'm waiting.
We'll see.
I'm waiting.
You shouldn't be such a skeptic when there's victims involved here, though. We want to make sure that we have all the information.
Tell me.
And people say
Tell
the
me.
information.
Not skeptical. Tell me. Say the names. Just say them. Then we'll get going.
The 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie's alleged ransom deadline that was set for Monday evening has now passed. We'll tell you more next. Don't go anywhere.
Final deadline from an alleged ransom note that demanded millions of dollars in cryptocurrency for the release of Nancy Guthrie. That deadline has now passed. It was set for 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday. The search for the 84-year-old Guthrie is entering its 10th day. Police still have no suspect.
Now, the note received by KGUN, a news station in Tucson, reportedly demanded $6 million in Bitcoin. The Bitcoin account given by kidnappers showed zero balance and transactions. The supposed kidnappers also threatened Guthrie's life if payment was not made by the deadline. The FBI and Pima County Sheriff's Department still haven't verified the authenticity of the ransom demand. A spokesperson for the Pima County Sheriff's Department said Monday, quote, "The investigation into Nancy Guthrie's disappearance remains active and ongoing. We understand the significant public interest in this case. However, investigators need time and space to do their work. And if and when relevant information becomes available, it will be shared."
Meanwhile, hours before the alleged deadline on Monday, Savannah Guthrie took to social media urging anyone with information about her mother to come forward. Let's watch.
We believe our mom is still out there. We need your help. Law enforcement is working tirelessly around the clock trying to bring her home, trying to find her. She was taken and we don't know where. And we need your help.
Now, sources familiar with the matter informed Fox News that on Sunday, February 1st, Nancy Guthrie was expected at a friend's home to watch a New York-based church service via live stream and not attend an in-person church service, as reported earlier.
Nancy hasn't been seen since January 31st when her son-in-law dropped her off at her Tucson home after having dinner with him and Nancy's daughter, Annie. So really no new information since we discussed this yesterday. This deadline for a ransom passed, and it appears it was not paid. That seems like a reasonable choice to make, to not pay it. The thinking is that they did not provide proof of life, which generally you would do in order to then actually get a ransom. I'd be very skeptical personally about paying out. Not that I've ever been in this situation or can imagine what people are going through, but I'd be skeptical of paying out a ransom anyway. This doesn't usually end well. I don't think we can come up with a lot of examples of someone paying a ransom and then getting their loved one back alive and everything goes back to normal. That's not a typical occurrence. Again, I've said this, none of this is typical because kidnappings by unknown persons for ransom or whatever are just not common in the U.S. At all. They can happen in other countries. Typically, there is someone close to the person involved, and it is, it's not what it appears to be. Now, this is weird. The police don't have any leads, apparently. Trump said he implied they knew something, but now they're saying they don't really know anything. I presume they've looked into people close to her, and if they're not seeing anything, then maybe it is a stranger. I really don't know. This is a baffling situation, but my gut tells me that it would not just be a kidnapping of ransom. Now, her daughter's a famous person. She was well known, so it could be a stalker fan thing. There are so many possibilities it could be, but the Occam's razor is just that someone probably harmed her, and
I think day 10 into the investigation, knowing that day 1, the family was saying that Nancy Guthrie needed life-saving medication because she had some ailments.
Right.
You wonder what's happening, like what kind of medication. I mean, I have family members. We all do that.
Blood
deal with
on
medication,
the property
right?
found.
So
none of these are good signs.
Right. So we kind of would like updates to the public, and I really would hope that we're leaning towards the side of the president where he's saying he has more information than they're telling the American public, because to think that the FBI, local law enforcement, and all these different entities are over this one specific case and putting so much resources into it, and we're going 2 weeks in with not one person of interest, that's kind of disturbing. And not that it would be a fault of theirs if it really is just no clues, but this has to be the biggest mastermind we've seen in generations then. Right. And that's the thing.
I mean, it has only been 10 days, and in this era of mass surveillance,
it's kind of hard
extraordinarily likely someone will see something and speak up at some point, but we just have to wait for that.
Coming up, data from the DHS shows that the vast majority of those arrested by ICE were not charged with violent crimes. Stick around for that in my lens.
All right, Lindsay, what's in your lens?
Let's discuss. So President Trump has repeatedly described this immigration crackdown as a mission to remove the, quote, worst of the worst, meaning murderers, rapists, gang members. But according to an internal Department of Homeland Security document obtained by CBS News, the data tells a far more complicated story. So ICE made roughly 393,000 arrests between January 21st, 2025, and the end of January this year, 2026. That's more than triple the number of administrative arrests in fiscal year 2024. So yes, enforcement has ramped up dramatically. But here's the part that stood out to me. Less than 14% of those arrested had charges or convictions for violent crimes like homicide, robbery, sexual assault, kidnapping, or arson. Take a listen to a bit of the reporting.
The president, for example, often talks about ICE going after murderers, gangsters, and sexual offenders and rapists, but only 2% of the people arrested by ICE had been convicted or charged with homicide or sexual assault, and another 2% were identified as gang members. The numbers really illustrate, guys, that the Trump administration's mass deportation policy is also impacting a lot of people who, yes, may be in the country without legal permission, but are not any threat to the public or to national security.
Now, nearly 40% of those arrested had no criminal record at all. They were accused only of civil immigration violations, things like overstaying a visa or living in the country without authorization. Those are civil offenses, typically handled in immigration court, not criminal court. When the administration frames this operation primarily as a sweep of violent predators, the public deserves clarity about who is actually being arrested. Public opinion appears to be shifting also. A CBS News poll found support for President Trump's deportation efforts has dropped from 59% at the start of his second term to 46%. More than 60% of Americans surveyed said immigration agents are being, quote, too tough. That shift may reflect what people are seeing: workplace raids, day laborers targeted in parking lots, even U.S. citizens stopped and questioned. This isn't a debate about whether immigration law should be enforced. It's a debate about transparency and proportionality. If nearly 40% of those arrested have no criminal record and only a small fraction are accused of the violent crimes that dominate political speeches, then we have to ask ourselves whether the policy matches the promise. And if we're going to have a national conversation about immigration enforcement, it needs to start with who is actually being swept up, not just who we're told is.
If 40% don't have a criminal record, doesn't that mean 60% do have a criminal?
Well, the other ones in the report, and I urge you to watch it, would show that, yeah, like some people, they had a traffic violation. Like I'm sure you have, Robby. If you drive your little scooter on the sidewalk, that's illegal. I don't know if you do. And it's not little. It's a big scooter, whatever. But my point is, these are small traffic violations, and then we're hearing people argue, they violated the law. That's not the criminals that Trump campaigned on arresting, right? So if somebody who works in a factory that is fueling our economy and otherwise living and abiding by all of our laws has a traffic violation, like I'm sure everyone watching has had at least one in their lifetime, they should go to criminal jail, not immigration civil court, for the actual offense, which is coming to the country or overstaying a visa, which is not legal in our country. That's what they should be in criminal court for.
If you're here in the country illegally, I'm sorry, you have to really, really try to follow the letter of the law involving all other laws to protect yourself, because if you get
stopped for a tail light
and they find out you're here illegally, then they're going to take some immigration action against you.
Fine,
what do you want me to say? You're here illegally.
That's fine, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about they stop you and then they find out you're here illegally.
Do I think they should?
I'm talking about they're randomly raiding places, finding people, finding out their names.
The only problem is they have traffic violations. No, of course not.
That's what's happening, though. That's what's happening. If 60%, I said 14% of people have actually been convicted of or are currently in the process of being accused of criminal convictions that the president talks about.
Some of these traffic violations are a little bit more serious than just
we discussed them
over.
Yes, we discussed them.
I mean, this has made big news in conservative media. The couple truck drivers who are illegal immigrants who got licenses to operate trucks and are driving like it's the third world and have caused car crashes that have killed Americans.
And because
it's pretty outrageous for a lot of people.
I think it's important to note that because you have one example of something doesn't mean that it's the overwhelming, two examples doesn't mean that it's the overwhelming thing that's happening. You pointed that out in the Savannah Guthrie story we just talked about. We have one example of potential kidnapping, but that's not how these kidnapping cases usually work, right? But because the spotlight's on it, we believe that we should be extra fearful about the way that immigrants drive. That's wholly not true.
Right.
So I don't think that we should try to act like there's a bunch of...
But the conservative... Right. I'm not exaggerating, but the conservative perspective is there shouldn't even be one or two of these instances because they're all illegal immigrants and they want them all gone. So it's not about proportionality or statistics or how likely it is. It's any infractions by illegal immigrants shouldn't be taking place at all. We shouldn't have to deal with. We should deal with zero.
But we hear the president and the administration, specifically the president.
Not my perspective.
Fine. We hear and I know your perspective, but we hear the president often saying that there are rapists, gang members, and all these people that he's arresting. That's only 14%. So I want you to address the fact that most people that he's arresting and taking out of this country are not.
Okay, a lot of Americans will say 14% fewer rapists and gang members.
400,000 people, and then 300. So whatever 14% of 393,000 that have been taken out.
We have to deport some other illegal immigrants who haven't. So we end up collecting them in our process of getting the 14% who are rapists and gang members. We also ensnare a significant number of illegals who have not committed other crimes.
We also killed 2 Americans in the process.
That was worth it. That's what many
And we also killed
Americans
2
would
Americans
say.
in the process with our tactics in Minnesota. So that's also, is that all part of the
Democrats
worth it?
resist local law enforcement cooperating with the federal authorities.
No, it's not about he
Trying
said,
to
she
stop
said. It actually
any
was
illegal
incidents
immigrants
where
from
we're
being
talking
deported
about
whatsoever.
the extreme use of force by law enforcement. We're currently investigating that right now, whether that was the case or they were out of bounds with their actions. So
The use of
therefore,
force
that's the
follows from
dialogue.
Them saying they'll do no immigration enforcement whatsoever in Minnesota.
So Democratic leaders, like Fry did not tell Renee Good exactly how to behave. Republican leaders did not tell ICE exactly how to behave. Right is right and wrong is wrong. Using too much force on an American citizen should be looked at independently and fairly by both sides and saying, we don't want Americans to die.
Driving into a police officer is going to result in them taking lethal force.
Do you have another excuse for Alex Preddy, or are you going to say he was driving as well?
No, I have not taken the position that was a rightful shooting. I don't know.
You haven't taken the position that either one were rightful, but I think we should look
but
into that and say this is not the outcome of immigration.
I agree, but it is not, in fact, the outcome in cities and states where the local authorities are working with national authorities to detain and deport illegal immigrants.
I think that we can do better around the rhetoric that's happening with migrants in this country. I think that you could point fingers about whether calling people rapists is effective when the numbers don't show that. I think we could do better with communication before enforcement. So the fact that the president is now speaking to Walz and putting in Tom Homan to be the level-headed manager of the situation after the fact, after 2 Americans is killed, is too little too late. I think this all could have been handled ahead of time.
Now that they can cooperate.
I mean, he started with pointing fingers.
I've had enough of this too. We've all had enough of innocent people getting killed. So I hope Democrats got the message and are going to help out. So now we'll have less of these violent confrontations.
I can't believe that you seriously would put all the blame on that people died on Democrats saying they don't want the way immigration is handled by
states
the
where
president.
They're working together, and because when they work together, you can arrest or detain an illegal immigrant at the courthouse where there's no danger, where they've already gone through a metal detector, so they don't have weapons. So then that's safer for everyone. There's no way for them to flee. That's what we want to happen. You want the stops to occur in safe environments like a courthouse, for instance. That's what can happen in red states all over the country. It's not what happens in Minnesota because they're not going to do it.
Yeah, there are a lot of laws in this country that have been changed and discussed over time between local leaders and federal officials. And the president should have started with a conversation with leaders that didn't agree with his sweeping plan for the nation.
Next up, former Trump advisor Steve Bannon. He's under fire from prominent figures like Elon Musk because of his alleged connection to Jeffrey Epstein. Stay with us. Elon Musk has faced heat in recent weeks for being named in several documents of the newly released Epstein files. Now he's going on the offensive and joining those calling out former Trump advisor Steve Bannon for his apparent ties to Epstein. Messages between Bannon and Epstein unearthed by the DOJ's release of more files shows that the two stayed in contact right up until the day Epstein was arrested in 2019.
Now, emails from Bannon show that he was in the process of producing a documentary about Epstein at the time to help rehabilitate his public image. And the late financier seemed to show an interest in helping Bannon spread his message of right-wing populism that helped get Donald Trump elected. A new report from CNN goes into greater detail, saying, quote, in the days leading up to Epstein's arrest in July 2019, the two men exchanged a steady stream of text messages veering from breezy banter and dark humor to more serious strategizing around Bannon's efforts to foment a global populist movement. Bannon had predicted with eerie precision that the populist uprising that would carry Trump to the White House, forecasting a middle-class revolt led by right-wing forces that would soon upend geopolitics. Bannon appeared to walk Epstein through his plans for a new center-right coalition, one that could outlast Democratic elections for more than a decade.
Elon Musk has been a vocal critic of Bannon over the past year, and indeed before that as well. On Monday, he launched a string of posts repeatedly calling him evil and saying Bannon's list of crimes is very long. He also reposted several pictures of Bannon and Epstein together, as well as posts from conservative commentators, such as this one from the podcaster and youth pastor Alex Stone, which says Steve Bannon should be marked and avoided by everyone in the conservative movement. The more I learn about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, the more I am disgusted and disturbed by the man. And then this one from the right-wing commentator Ian Miles Chong, who reads, The fact that Steve Bannon was a Trump-hating degenerate and an ally who was trying to clear the good name of Jeffrey Epstein through the production of a documentary is only the tip of the filth-encrusted iceberg. Bannon has been critical of the Trump administration's handling of the Epstein files, questioning the DOJ's commitment to transparency. As of Tuesday, he has not publicly responded to the recent comments from Musk and from others. If I was Sloppy Steve, I would shut up about the Epstein files. I can't believe he was leading the charge to release these things. He looks worse than anyone. And again, got to be careful here. No evidence against him of sexual crimes whatsoever, but he did keep talking to Epstein right up until the man's death, seeking political advice from him, talking strategy, talking Trump-related things. It reflects horrible judgment on him. Steve Bannon should be run out of the conservative movement. I agree with Elon fully. Fully on this.
Well, Elon Musk has to address that he's the pot calling the kettle black.
No,
I mean, he's
it's
sitting.
not.
There's Forbes. Forbes released a picture. No,
black.
Forbes released a picture of him at dinner allegedly with Epstein. I mean, he said he didn't really know him like that. Had a nice sit-down meal that Epstein emailed to himself. He also is one of those people that's part of the group. That's,
Elon.
Yes. Forbes says that allegedly they were in the picture
Allegedly.
together. Yes, and I read the article this morning. Everyone is lying, saying they haven't met Epstein, but there's email correspondence. Elon Musk's brother has an email back and forth with Epstein saying the quote, universe is conspiring for us to spend more time together. What is that? As he tries to plan a party attendance with Epstein. So your whole family is involved with Epstein, but he is also being so outspoken.
The Bannon stuff is
But
1,000 times.
Elon Musk is still being so
more.
outspoken about this. It's like you shouldn't be the teapot calling the kettle anything. You be quiet. He's now looking at victims and saying, you victims speak up, and guess what? If you're scared about getting sued, I will pay your legal fees. This is what Elon's saying.
said
So
that.
put it on paper. Yes, put it on paper, Elon. Sign it, document all these people, and let the survivor speak up. You'll cover every single legal fee.
He would absolutely
Well,
do
he
that.
should do that because I think that he's just.
They won't speak.
I think that he's just doing like this whole showy thing where he's like, I'm going to say this just to clear my name.
He
and
did it.
extra
He
seem
told.
to
He
clear my
said
name.
he'd pay for Gina Carano's lawsuit against Disney. She was fired from The Mandalorian, and he paid for the whole thing. And I think
I don't think people should take Elon Musk's word for it. That are the Epstein's victims when he's in the Epstein files. I mean that doesn't really make sense to me. If I was a survivor, I would consider myself to making a silly move by trusting Elon Musk by his word. Sign a document. Get it done.
Don't worry, they're not going to make any financial.
I don't like this is not coming from like some priest. This is coming from Elon Musk.
Yeah.
That's saying that he wants to criticize another person for their entanglements with
They're
allegedly.
real cautious about speaking up. So I don't think they're going to just start talking without an ironclad agreement. In fact, I don't think they're going to talk. Period.
They might if Elon puts that on paper. I mean, he's a businessman. He knows how this goes.
Maybe.
I don't understand. Why do you think that Elon Musk wants to speak up so much? I think it's more of like smoke and mirrors. He said he barely knew Epstein.
Elon
and then we
Musk
have other
and Steve
correspondences.
Bannon hate each other because they represent different factions of MAGA. Steve Bannon is the populist, economically far left. Bannon, he's such a conservative person, or his views are conservative socially. His economic views are left wing, like left wing. He is like a hardcore Marxist in terms of his economic views. He wants to antitrust. He wants to break up every business. He wants to destroy tech. I don't care for his economic views at all. Elon is in the other side of he's an economic conservative libertarian type. He wants free trade and free markets and low taxes and low regulation so that he can make more electric cars and go to space and do all that stuff. And they hate each other for that reason. So really, this is a proxy battle. So whoever looks worse in the Epstein files is going to be like, see, he's the really bad one. Now, objectively, Steve Bannon looks much, 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 much worse in this whole thing, and I don't see how anyone could conclude otherwise.
I think the problem for me is that we've seen this tactic from Elon Musk before. It's almost like this erratic knee-jerk behavior where somebody gets on his nerves, is what you're explaining. He doesn't like someone's policies, specifically with like the big, beautiful bill. And then you start tweeting out, you're in the Epstein files. Wait until it gets revealed. Like this is what he did to President Trump. You remember, it was only a few months ago where he did the same thing to President Trump. Like, oh, he's going to get embarrassed. Wait till this comes out. And then we're here and it's like, Elon Musk, what are you doing?
Elon has a number of personal issues. He's way too online. He's radicalized himself on X. He is way too addicted to the platform he purchased. He has admitted to having some social, behavioral disadvantages, as it were.
Are you making excuses for him?
No, I'm just saying why he sounds the way he sounds. And there are concerns and reports that he uses too many substances that can alter how you behave. So he's got all that. He's a flawed champion of my worldview, to put it mildly, but he's my guy, and
you're gonna stick beside him.
I'm sticking with my guy.
You have said before
I'm standing with my man.
And I don't know if you used the word genius, but you have alluded to that. He is pretty genius-like when it comes to.
I think he's the smartest person who's.
Okay, so the smartest person in the world. Get it together. Either you don't know Epstein or you do know him.
Well,
either your brother knows Epstein or wants to go to his party.
Outrageously
is begging to come to the island or not. What is it?
Usually have personality flaws.
I think you're really lenient with the excuses because you like this guy, and I think we need to be really honest.
I'm being honest.
Why did he lie to us? Why did he lie to us and say he didn't really know Epstein like that? And then we're seeing that he's basically begging to come hang out with him on his island. We see that his brother's begging to go to the party, saying the universe is conspiring to put us together. Like, Epstein. We see that you probably were at dinner with Epstein.
He meets a lot of people.
Nope, I'm not excited.
Steve Bannon filmed a hours-long documentary with Epstein for the purposes of making him look smart and good, for laundering him back to the media as a genius and an upstanding citizen. That's so much worse. It's so much worse.
I mean, worse is worse. Affiliating with a man that's a known pedophile, worse is worse. Both are trash to me. And so when we talk about the fact that your argument has always been that certain presidents and leaders have not affiliated with Epstein after he was convicted of these charges, and certain people have, well, Elon Musk and his brother are falling into the category that's completely disrespectful to me.
Okay, but Steve Bannon, that and then some.
So it's not about who's worse. It's like both are terrible. Both are not good.
I don't think the Elon
you need to figure out how to communicate.
Terrible. I think the Bannon thing is.
Oh, really? So if you're a good friend and somebody's convicted pedophile and your good friends are saying, I think the universe is conspiring for us to hang out, or may I come to your island, you wouldn't look at your friend crazy for hanging out with a pedophile on their own island? Yes, you would. Don't take a deep breath. Tell me, would you?
I mean, now we have to get it.
Would you judge? Would you judge your friend for trying to hang out with a pedophile?
You keep saying pedophile, but what he was convicted of was non-consensual prostitution.
Okay. You want to be in the nitty-gritty about Epstein. The disgusting
you
man
asked
like
me,
that.
you put me on the spot about whether I would care.
Okay, fine. So would you care if your friends were hanging out with somebody that I would lecture all my friends?
Pedophile, yes.
Okay, but not specifically Epstein.
This is not specifically the situation that has been demonstrated. Up next, American freestyle skier Hunter Hess posted a positive message about the U.S. after President Trump bashed him for previous comments. We'll be right back after this. American freestyle skier Hunter Hess has posted a positive message about the U.S. after President Trump bashed him over previous comments that he made. Hess wrote on Instagram, "I love my country. There's so much that is great about America, but there are always things that could be better. One of the many things that makes this country so amazing is we have the right and the freedom to point that out."
The American freestyle skier had faced backlash from the right for saying that he had, quote, mixed emotions about representing America at the 2026 Milan Cortina Winter Olympics. Here was Hess speaking to the media ahead of Friday's opening ceremony.
It brings up mixed emotions to represent the U.S. right now, I think. It's a little hard. There's obviously a lot going on that I'm not the biggest fan of, and I think a lot of people aren't. Just because I'm wearing the flag doesn't mean I represent everything that's going on in the U.S.
Over those comments, President Trump blasted Hess, writing on Truth Social, U.S. Olympic skier Hunter Hess, a real loser, says he doesn't represent his country in the current Winter Olympics. If that's the case, he should have tried out for the team. He shouldn't have tried out for the team, and it's too bad he's on it. Very hard to root for someone like this.
Moreover, two-time Olympian Chris Lillis said that he's, quote, heartbroken over the current administration's actions, but he would never want to represent another country in the games. Senator Bernie Sanders also weighed in on X, writing, quote, Trump called American Olympian Hunter Hess a, quote, real loser for criticizing what's happening in our country. Under Mr. Trump, Mr. President, this is not a monarchy. This is the United States, and no one is required to bow down to you.
Meanwhile, Real Clear Politics reporter Philip Wegman wrote on X, because the press is obsessed with asking Olympians about American politics, a welcome change could be asking Eileen Gu, the U.S. skier competing for the CCP, about China giving Jimmy Lai a death sentence.
Fair point.
Some news from this week that a prominent Hong Kong dissenter, businessman Jimmy Lai, has been sentenced. So I agree that our athletes have freedom of speech, and they can criticize the country, and they can criticize Trump, and that's a beautiful thing. It's fine. It always sounds pretty hypocritical, though, frankly, when you speak up at an international event where you're competing against people in truly repressive countries who won't dare criticize their governments because their governments will torture their families. So maybe just sit this one out, Chief, would be my take, even though, yes, you can say whatever you want.
No, the chief that should sit this one out is President Trump. He needs to just don't watch shows he doesn't like we caught him watching the Super Bowl. He was watching Bad Bunny perform, but whatever, we'll talk about that soon. We also know that he's reading and watching what's going on with the Olympics, and he doesn't like what people say, and then he starts to personally attack them. People need to understand that dissent is the foundation of this country. So if you look at the Boston Tea Party, the Civil Rights Movement, these are people dissenting the policies and the governments in America, but also saying, I still love my country. I want to live here. I don't like the way that things are being handled by the government. No, let me finish. He's allowed to say that. And so just because China is doing it even worse doesn't mean you should keep your mouth shut. If somebody asks athletes about that, that's up to the journalists to continue to ask other countries. But the answer is not wrong no matter what it is. He's there supporting the country, representing the U.S., hopefully winning gold.
Okay, if we're going to ask the athletes to opine on geopolitical affairs, let's ask them about China, let's ask them about Russia, and let's see.
Yeah, but geopolitical affairs they might not be in tune with. They live in America, breathe American soil, breathe American air. They're talking about what's happening in their country. He said, I'm looking at the policies, and I don't like everything that's going on.
I actually don't blame, to Philip Wegman's point, I don't really blame the athletes. I blame media needs to stop asking them those kinds of questions. There's no value to it. They're just trying to stir the pot, create conflict and discord, and there's no reason for that. I will also say additionally, maybe this is an unpopular take, I do not care about the Olympics.
What?
The least bit.
What do you mean?
I don't think I have ever watched a single second of an Olympic event, and I don't ever intend to because I don't care.
You know, my career started at NBC, and so they had the Olympics coverage, and I used to watch all the different sports, especially the winter ones.
I mean, our longtime viewers know I'm not a big sports fan in general. I like football. I like Michigan football, my team. I like golf. That's about it. I definitely don't care about freestyle skiing or whatever.
Well, I hope that
you do. That's fine. I hope it's an enjoyable
I hope the president
viewing
takes your
experience.
perspective on also, so he can just care about what's going on with our country and policies that people don't like, as opposed to what Olympic skiers are saying.
Sounds fine to me. That does it for us on Rising Live. Thanks for watching, and look out for more exclusive YouTube content coming your way later today. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Hills YouTube channel so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere you listen to podcasts. See you back here tomorrow.
The debate rages on over Bad Bunny's halftime show from Sunday, with many conservatives upset at the NFL's decision to have a Spanish language performance on the country's biggest stage.
One of the many expressing outrage was former Fox News host Megyn Kelly, who blasted the performance when she went on Piers Morgan's show. I'm sure it was a measured take. Let's watch.
To get up there and perform the whole show in Spanish is a middle finger to the rest of America. Who gives a damn that we have 40 million Spanish speakers in the United States? We have 310 million who don't speak a lick of Spanish. This is supposed to be a unifying event for the country, not for the Latinos, not for one small group, but for the country.
Wow. Piers Morgan pushed back on Kelly, arguing that the U.S. does not have an official national language. That led to this argument.
This attitude that you have right here is why you in Great Britain have lost your culture. You ceded your culture to a bunch of radical Muslims who came in and took over, and now it's gone. We're not allowing that here. Whether it's Hispanic, whether it's Muslim, it's not happening in the United States of America. That's why President Trump was elected. Football, that kind of football, is ours. They call it American football. And the halftime show and everything around it needs to stay quintessentially American.
Oh boy, those comments were echoed by other conservative voices, such as Matt Walsh, who wrote on X, why would the most iconic American sporting event of the year celebrate a culture that has absolutely nothing to do with the sport and has contributed basically nothing to it? There's a record number of Hispanics in the NFL this year, and still there were only 32 total on the rosters, which is an average of one per team. One of the most viral statements on the performance came from YouTuber and boxer Jake Paul. Before the game started, he posted on X, "Turn off this halftime, a fake American citizen performing who publicly hates America. I cannot support that."
Paul sparked a lot of backlash with that post, as many pointed out that Bad Bunny is from Puerto Rico, making him a U.S. citizen. Even Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez responded, writing, quote, "Didn't you move to Puerto Rico to avoid paying your taxes while Kids across America go hungry. Meanwhile, Benito actually funds low-income kids access to arts and sports program while you defund them. Of course you're mad. He makes you look small. Jake Paul himself confirmed that he, in fact, does live in Puerto Rico, having moved there with his brother Logan several years ago.
Yeah, all right. He should sit this one out then. Paul responded to the backlash on Monday and clarified his stance. He said he called Bad Bunny a fake citizen, not because he's from Puerto Rico, but because of how he's criticized the U.S., especially its immigration enforcement.
As Jon Stewart said, people like Megyn Kelly, he didn't reference her directly, but he said this last night, they had the nerve to complain about Bad Bunny didn't do enough to unify this country. They only found out that Puerto Rico was a part of the country a few days ago when Bad Bunny was announced as a performer. Also, when they support a president that has done more to divide this country, that's kind of absurd, talking out both sides of your mouth at the same time. This is just a stupid and foolish argument. Megyn Kelly should be embarrassed when she's talking about American performers and people that represent the country. You think about Rolling Stones. Was she okay with that? U2. Was she okay with that? Paul McCartney, Sting, these all are not American people, and she probably tuned into the show and didn't say a lick of a word, okay? Because they're not actually American performing. Bad Bunny is from Puerto Rico, an American citizen performing. People in America speak Spanish. I'm sorry that you didn't understand. Put it in Google Translate. Most people were dancing and could recognize that the music's actually good. You remember when the world sang Gangnam Style? Do you know what that song means or what it stands for? No, but billions of people around the world, including the U.S., were doing this to Psy. It's still the most streamed video on YouTube. You remember it? Okay.
I remember it. It's a great video.
Exactly.
I love it.
So if Megyn Kelly could understand that and the world understands that, she needs to get on board. People were salsa dancing, having a good time. People need to understand that just because it's not for you this one time, get over it. Also, I'm laughing in her face because that Turning Points event, President Trump wasn't even watching it. We have video of him actually watching Bad Bunny performing at the Super Bowl. No, I can't. Cares. Because this is all embarrassing take. Everybody who has any critiques for Bad Bunny that surround him not being American are not only dumb, they're just misinformed and foolish.
No one is saying he's... Okay. Yes, I was gearing up to mostly agree with you, but now I don't think I do after that tirade.
Rant.
Some of the criticisms we referenced there are not the most intelligent critiques I've ever heard. Yes, he is an American, and America is not just the United States. Our hemisphere, the Americas, contains a lot of Spanish-speaking people. So Megyn Kelly's analogy there to you're losing your country because you're permitting too many Muslims is not really an apt metaphor, because this, like, from a U.S. perspective, there should be a major difference between, like, refugees from the Middle East and Spanish-speaking people of like, they are Americans. America includes Latin America and South America and the Caribbean, and Puerto Rico is even part of the United States. So these are not similar metaphors. We have Spanish cuisine and Spanish music as a part of the Southwest and a part of America, and so that was not, she was getting a little, she's making it sound like she just wants it to be white.
Exactly.
But
making it sound racist.
Well, it could be white every now and then. It's not. There's not been white performers for the last however many Super Bowls in a row.
Well, however many Super Bowls in a row, it's mostly white performers. If you look at the majority, go look at the history. It's mostly
okay. Now for the last 6 years.
Yeah, 6 years. Get over it. Jay-Z runs it now. But for years, it's been white people. So that critique is foolish. Look at all the years. Look at all the white people, and then you can balance it out. Does it match the demographics of our country? Probably so. More white people than not.
Well, not in the last 6 years. I don't care. I liked most of these past performances that have taken place anyway. I liked this one too. I wasn't familiar with the music. Like, I like Latin music. I like Shakira when she did it. I liked Lady Gaga's part. I like Ricky Martin. I know who those people are. I didn't know who Bad Bunny was, even though I've probably heard his music in the background in a club or something. I just didn't know who he was specifically until they announced him for the Super Bowl, and none of his songs are identifiable to me. That's probably the case also for some of these older commentators who are saying, I didn't love it, and they're wrongly latching onto, I don't like it because it's some outside other, where if it was someone they had heard on the radio, like Shakira or Gloria Estefan or something, from back in the day, it's not really about it being Spanish, it's just about it being unfamiliar. That's what I would say. This is a younger person's artist, and 10 years from now, it wouldn't have been controversial, is my guess. It's just not widely known to older people yet. Is that fair?
Sure.
Is that fair?
So
nothing wrong with it.
So
I enjoyed the performance. I enjoyed the dancing.
So Megyn
I would have
Kelly,
enjoyed it more if I liked the songs. I liked the part not Gwen Stefani, Lady Gaga. I liked the part Lady Gaga did because I knew that song.
Okay.
Okay, that's all.
So
That's all.
you talked about old people. So let's talk to Megyn Kelly, the old lady.
Okay.
Sit out of this conversation. It's not for you. Nobody wants you to listen to it. Go watch Turning Points. 5 million people were over there. We see who all the delinquents are that like Kid Rock. Kid Rock was popular in 1998. You can watch that show. Nobody cares.
Kid Rock
5
performed
million
the Super
people
Bowl.
watched it. I don't care. In 1998, 5 million people watched Turning Points event. 120 plus million people watched the Super Bowl. 511 million people watched it on Apple Music.
Who cares?
So Megyn
You're
Kelly,
right.
go with your small crowd. You are in the minority here, and she's so mad that
So
nobody cares because
you're
she's
mad.
I am mad because she's being racist. She literally is saying she doesn't want somebody that speaks Spanish performing because that's after we colonized Puerto Rico. She's saying she doesn't want somebody to speak Spanish performing. She's a delinquent. That's like delinquency and foolishness, like racism to the top core. I want to see more white people because football is white. What? Mostly made up of black players. What are you talking about, lady? So it's just embarrassing when she speaks, and especially in ways like this that are degrading people just because they're Spanish. I'm not going to accept that. And so, yes, it's laughable and embarrassing that Turning Points had that other event, which was racist in itself. Nobody watched.
It's racist for them to have an
Yeah,
event?
because they called it All-American, as if the Super Bowl event wasn't All-American. It was wholly American. We colonized Puerto Rico. Bad Bunny's an American. So the fact that we're calling it All-American over there is coded language, and we all know that. So Megyn Kelly is embarrassing.
The politics. That was
Whatever.
about.
It's always about something else. Trump is about not seeing the screenshot, which is why he posted Obama as apes. It's always about something else.
It was about Bad Bunny's political views, which were opposed to immigration enforcement. That's what he said. He didn't do any of that at the Super Bowl, which is great.
MTG
but he did
is opposed to Trump.
No, what?
MTG is opposed to Trump. So why
does that have to do with it?
I'm saying like
Nothing's
a lot of people are
opposed
opposed to
It's
Trump
that he
and
was-
his views.
It's that he was opposed to immigration policies that conservatives support. So they were declining to support him by watching him because he spoke up about policies they disagreed.
And it was an L. Compared to the numbers, it was a complete fail.
Well, obviously it was going to be. People are watching the Super Bowl and they don't
Exactly.
change their channel. They
So
weren't
Jake
watching
Paul,
the-
it's an L. You live in Puerto
It's not
Rico,
a
it's an L. TP USA, you thought it was going to be a comparison. That was an L. So everybody just go ahead and get on board. Spanish language is the second most spoken language in our country. Learn a lick of
Second.
Spanish. Yeah, learn a lick of Spanish. I go internationally all the time because I have a docuseries that travels. Most people know 2 languages besides Americans. We should actually try to learn more languages. When you go to other countries, they might know English and something. And so why would you deter people from learning other languages? It's beautiful that we are a melting pot here and speak more than one language. It's the second most spoken language in our country. Read what the lyrics are all about. Dance a little bit. Get the stick up. Like, I'm not even going to go. I'm done talking to Megyn Kelly. She's embarrassing. Hang it up, lady. Old lady, like you said. Ancient people who don't get it, she's the one. Ancient.
All right. Well, now I feel obligated to you're turning me against this, but so let's just leave it there.
The New York Times editorial board is reversing course a bit on their marijuana stance. Stick around.
Here's some news. The New York Times editorial board seemingly admitted in a new op-ed that they may have been a little bit wrong about marijuana.
Now, the op-ed entitled "It's Time for America to Admit That It Has a Marijuana Problem" walks back its previous full-throated support of blanket legalization and offers a slightly more nuanced take. It reads in part, in 2014, we published a 6-part series that compared the federal marijuana ban to alcohol prohibition and argued for repeal. Much of what we wrote then still holds up, but not all of it does. In our editorials, we describe marijuana addiction and dependence as, quote, relatively minor problems. Many advocates went further and claimed that marijuana was a harmless drug that might even bring net health benefits. They also said that legalization might not lead to greater use. It's now clear that many of these predictions were wrong. Legalization has led to much more use. The board continues, this wider use has caused a rise in addiction and other problems. Each year, nearly 2.8 million people in the United States suffer from cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, which causes severe vomiting and stomach pain. More people have also ended up in hospitals with marijuana-linked paranoia and chronic psychotic disorders. Bystanders have also been hurt, including people by driving under the influence of pot. The Times board does go on to say they do not recommend recriminalizing the drug, instead calling for more regulation and awareness.
That call for moderation hasn't stopped some from shouting their "I told you so's" online. One of those people is author Alex Berenson, who wrote a book called Tell Your Children: The Truth About Marijuana, Mental Illness, and Violence. He clearly felt vindicated, posting on X, "The New York Times just admitted it was wrong to call for the full legalization of cannabis and called for making the extracts illegal. I warned you 7 years ago. Now the reality is impossible to ignore." And then also Morning Joe's Joe Scarborough echoed that, writing in a post of his own, "This editorial warning of marijuana's downsides is a long time coming. The selling of the drug as a harmless habit has always collided with medical realities, and drug wars versus illicit use is a false choice. The drug is bad for young, developing minds. States should decide its proper medical use, and as the Times writes, most adults will continue to use it in moderation, but this is a good cultural marker. Youth beware. Adults use with care." I think that last line is perfectly sensible. Children should not use it, and adults should use it in moderation. Look, a couple things have happened. It's true that marijuana has become more potent over time. People can make it more potent. And the idea that it had, I think advocates introduced the idea that there are no downsides associated with marijuana. That was mistaken. The health problems associated with marijuana are just much less than they are for so many other drugs, and so much less than they are for alcohol, which is fully legal for adults. So I still think that comparison holds up. I don't know how you can live in a world where marijuana would be illegal, but cigarettes and alcohol are legal. Cigarettes and alcohol, which kill so many more people, like not even like by a factor of you can't even scale. The marijuana has credibly killed very few people. It doesn't cause the health effects that chronic alcohol use or chronic smoking cause. So if those things are legal, then I don't know how you could have marijuana be illegal. Now, marijuana can cause psychosis for people who use it chronically, and that is a bad thing. Certainly nobody should be driving, but it's already illegal to drive under the influence, so that doesn't change the calculation for me. I still think it can be used to treat people who have chronic pain, especially as we're so concerned about opioid addiction. This is a different type of pain relief. All medicine, all drug comes with downsides, but people who are in a lot of pain, this can be a good solution for them, or even who have mental disorder, PTSD type things. This can be a better solution than becoming an alcoholic or getting addicted to opioids, which causes real serious addiction and people die. So I have not changed at all my conviction that marijuana should be fully legal, regulated in some way, sure. And if states want to experiment with different approaches to it, I think that's fine. I don't think there should be a federal policy. I think it should be up to the states. So we're really not changing our minds at all here. But if you want to concede that there are some harms that were under scrutinized or admitted by advocates, that's fine. I have no problem with that.
I agree. And I think that, so I lived in Denver. You know that was one of the first states, Colorado, to legalize marijuana recreationally. We did a docu-series piece with Mayor Mike Johnston about looking back at the years and decades since it's been legalized, how it's now affected the city itself and then the state. And I think that what I learned is that when you look at back in 1995, you talk about the potency. Most THC was about 4% potent. Most cannabis had about 4% THC. Now most strains have about 60 to 90% of THC, which is absurd about how you get that, why you want to get that high. It's almost like having liquor that's like all 40% alcohol. And so I think when you look at the history of when it first was legalized, there were a lot of small businesses that got into it because they were interested in some of the health effects or actually just wanted the recreational effects and wanted it to be legalized because they were growing it, not adding any additives or addictive chemicals or anything like that. And now big business has gotten involved and bought up a lot of those licenses in Colorado so that to even get in the game, you have to be almost a billionaire or multimillionaire to get a license. It's not like a local person's sport anymore to be involved with actually growing. And so then you always have companies, and I know you don't like regulations, but they do a ton of putting all this stuff in there that changes what marijuana actually does to a person, because it's not just grown in the back of somebody's house who has an affinity for growing it and wants to really talk about the health benefits or anything else.
Well, it's grown by companies. A lot of people like that.
No, there are, but now they've been pushed out of out of the competing really, because now you have big box stores
I know people
that
who grow their own on their property.
fine on their property. I'm talking about selling it to the masses. People are mostly most people are buying it from someone else and not growing it themselves. So when you have big business involved in that, that is when I think we started to steer in the wrong direction and have a lot of problems. And so my suggestion would be looking at these businesses that own it and the regulations involved to check what's happening and what changed from 1995 to right now.
The problem I have with the businesses in D.C. that sell marijuana is that you buy.
I didn't even know they
gummies,
sold it out here.
And then you try them, and then you go, "This doesn't have anything in it. This is
It's all a
sweet."
trick.
Look, I know a lot of people who smoke some amount of marijuana or take the gummies, little, a lot, who all do it perfectly responsibly and live lives of employment and success that has no negative effects on them. So I have a really hard time agreeing that it should be restricted when, and also it just speaks to my ideology. I just because some people struggle with gambling, I don't think gambling should be illegal for everybody. Some people struggle with alcohol. I don't think alcohol should be illegal with anybody. I don't think just because you have a problem, my rights end, right? I don't use marijuana irresponsibly. I don't use any drugs irresponsibly. So what right does the government have to say, I can't partake in this because somebody else has a problem? Isn't that their problem? Maybe they should be restricted from it. I don't know why I should. That's my ideology in a nutshell. So I remain committed to full legalization of this drug and, frankly, all other drugs. And, and we should invest in treatment plans for people who shouldn't have it, but they're going to get it anyway. Then we come into prohibition does not work. It's a failure. It's very hard to stop people from putting in their bodies things that are addictive on some level that they want to use. And we have drugs to counteract that, at least for alcohol and another. Even this Ozempic, the drug in Ozempic, has been discussed and looked at as something that can cure cravings of not just food, but also drugs and alcohol. So, we need to continue to invest in those kinds of things because I just don't see us going backward on this. I don't see constraining millions of people's right to engage in recreational marijuana use because there are some bad consequences for some people who do it too much. That seems even clearer in the marijuana case than it seems in the case of harder drugs or cigarettes or alcohol, frankly. So.
Well, finally, if DC is not doing you justice, you're always welcome to come to my house in Colorado and see,
okay.
see what you find.
I might take you up on that. A lot more to talk about on Rising. Stay with us.